So there's 3 qualities. And there's no magic about these, by the way. Every one of them you can affect for yourself and for your teams and for your company. In fact, I would even say you can do it for your students, you can do it for your communities, you can do it for the groups that you belong to. Okay. I looked at those and I said, Madelyn, you've been managing so many years and you know how to do this. You know how to help people understand who they are. You know how to deepen their knowledge. You know how to allow them to be more curious. So why don't you help other people do it by laying out some, what I call practices. The first one is, and I tell my clients, whether they are individuals or organizations, the first thing you want to do is you want to spend some time every day in silence. And I say 5 minutes, that's all you need, 5 minutes. You turn off the radio, you turn off the TV, you turn off the computer, you turn off your phone, and you sit in silence. Now they think 5 minutes is too long for that, makes them a little nervous, and I said, just get onto your phone and put the timer on for 5 minutes so you're not going to worry about time, and just sit there quietly. Now a couple of things happen. One is that the executive part of your brain, this place up here that's always talking to you, oh my goodness, it is so noisy, says, oh, I've got 5 minutes. All right, I'll quiet down. And it allows what's called the default network in your brain to say, you can hear me now? You asked me a question yesterday, here's the answer. You need a new blog title, this is the answer. What about doing this one? You give yourself time to listen to the marvelous things that are happening in your brain all the time. That default network is pulling all kinds of things together to give you ideas. 5 minutes of silence. Now, can you bring people together in a meeting and say, oh, we're going to take the next 5 minutes in silence while we gather ourselves? No, you're not going to do that. What you can do, however, is you can send questions out ahead of time. And you can say, this is the agenda topic. Here's some questions I want you to think about. You talked earlier about how do you deal with difficult issues for ARMA International versus the ARMA chapters, and how can you have a Congress, and how can you meet face-to-face. This is a way in which you can work virtually by sending out questions. And then people can take their own quiet time to reflect on those. And I will tell you, use that strategy and you will have much more powerful meetings. The second of the phenomenal 4 is that I tell people write a personal story every day. Now, a personal story is where you are in the story. You're the hero, the heroine, the protagonist, whatever you want to call them. You are in the story. I love the fact that Russ mentioned story this morning. I was actually a founding member of a group that literally brought story into the world. And I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but we were looking at the world of business. And I will tell you that 20 years ago, nobody talked about storytelling in business. And today, everybody talks about storytelling in business. And we were a small group in Washington, D.C. who dedicated ourselves for 10 years. We ended ourselves because we actually had achieved it. We looked in the literature and storytelling was being told all the time. So, story. I want you to write a personal story. And I say to the people, write it down. Because when you write it, there's a record. I don't have to tell you about records, right? Or you can type it. The key is to have a record of your story so that you can read across them and go, wow, what an interesting person. No wonder I think this way. And I'll give you an example of this. My husband and I were driving here yesterday, and there was something in the middle of the road. It was a piece of a tire that had blown off of some truck. And my husband was driving, and he just simply drove over it. My stomach went like this, because when I was 17, I was driving the family car and didn't understand what is it called, the oil pan is on the bottom of a car. I drove over that piece of whatever it was, lost the oil in the car, destroyed the car, because I didn't know that. I just kept driving until the car stopped. So, I mean, this is many years later. I hate to tell you how many years later, and I still get the clutch. But it's that experience. And what stories do is it brings the experiences of your life into the present. And you get to know who you are. John Seely Brown said that the smallest unit of knowledge is a story. Because you cannot tell a story without context. I started this morning with her. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm walking down the sidewalk. I gave you a context in which the story existed. That's why when I talk to people about best practices, I don't want to hear about best practices unless you tell me the story, the context around that best practice. Because what works for you in best practice won't necessarily work for you until you know the context. This is a place where you really want to make sure that people understand what your mission is. Now, you've got some interesting words that describe ARMA. And I'm not sure that you all feel the same way about those words. And what I often do is I ask people to pick a word from their mission statement, their vision statement, and tell a story that's inspired by that word. I did this one time at the Smithsonian. I was talking to an audience, there were maybe 150 in the audience, and we were talking about the preamble to the US Constitution. Now, a preamble to a constitution tells you why you have a constitution. I said, and one of those words is freedom. I said, in America, we talk about freedom like everybody knows what that is. So I asked the group, I said, turn to the person next to you and tell them a story that's inspired by the word freedom. I'll give you 3 minutes to do it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. 3 minutes are up. I said, I think we have time for a couple of stories. Instantly, 2 hands went up on the left-hand side of the auditorium, about 5 rows back, an elderly couple. I called on the gentleman. He got up and he said, I'm one of 5 boys. He said, and freedom to us was doing whatever we wanted to do, wherever we wanted to go, loud as we wanted to be. He told it better than that, but you get the picture. He sat down and the elderly woman got up and she said, I was a sister to those 5 boys. And freedom to me was finding a quiet corner. Well, the audience roared. They got it instantly. Freedom means different things to different people.